Welcome to Plus One Interview. Here today, this is a special episode. We got Shanda Foster from the 617 Pod. What's going on?
Whoop. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How you enjoying this pandemic? You got your tea?
I got my tea. It's the only thing I'm looking forward to for the rest of the day because I haven't talked about it with a lot of people. I feel like I haven't talked to a lot of people. You're one of like probably 5 people that I've talked to, in terms of friends.
Yeah.
But I'm quarantined with my family because I live downtown. I've been living alone for a while, forever. But I came home to my parents' house to help them with the kids because, the kids are not in school. So my nieces and nephews, they live there. So I've been quarantining with my entire family. There's 7 of us in total.
It looks like it's taking a toll on you.
Yeah.
That's
gotta
be interesting, especially when you got a big family or you quarantine with all of them. Because, at some point, you're just like, all right, I'm tired of looking at y'all. Any little thing they do is just agitate you.
Every little thing, and actually I think I'm handling it pretty well. I'm proud of myself, but I have had to leave to go to my house for, days at a time just to get a break. Cause I'm like, I gotta go home. I'll be back.
I know. I'm dealing with a few kids, a 8-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 2-year-old. And
so you understand.
Yeah. It's the 8-year-old. She's right next to me right now, actually. She's the difficult one.
We should get them on a Zoom together so that they can talk, because my niece is 8 too.
Yeah, probably, yeah. This one can talk. She got a little attitude problem. I think it's because she's an April baby. But,
They might be the same person.
But how's the homework, the schoolwork? Have you ran into something you're like, wait, hold on?
So the kids don't think that they need to do their schoolwork. That's the thing. And I mean, there's no structure right now. So, they're used to being able to have a set time. Now you have to really, really coordinate everything for them. And then, but it's kind of like expecting a kid to know, to have like a work-life balance situation. Like they're kids, they don't, we really have to be responsible for just being on top of them for it.
And they don't want to wake up too. They
don't want to wake up.
They want to wake up at like 11 or sometimes to noon. It's like, come on, get up.
Or they want to go to bed late.
That too. Watching Nickelodeon and stuff.
Yeah.
But we got a lot to talk about. There's no since quarantine they're giving me no time restrictions on anything, so we're gonna get through everything.
I love that.
All right. So first, let's get right into the Michael Jordan, The Last Dance, Chicago Bulls. The first 2 episodes, there was a lot going on in those first 2 episodes, and there was the storylines and everything. Jerry Krause, he's not with us anymore, but man, he looks horrible.
Jerry Krause is the epitome of the 2020 villain right now. Like, watching it now, it totally put it in perspective for me because I was a kid when that was going on. So, I was like, man, you ever see something and then, watch it when you were a kid and then when you watch it again as an adult, you're like, man, I didn't know that was going on.
Yeah.
So I started to see the little pieces and how they started to fit together. And it just, first of all, watching it was like magic to me because I loved that era and that team, that Chicago Bulls, the 3.
Yeah.
I loved it. That was one of my favorite. That's actually one of my favorite all-time teams.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to kind of get a look into what their everyday life was like and what was going on behind the scenes, like it just was really unreal to me to be able to see it. But they did a really, really good job with the details that they put into it. So shout out to ESPN because they did a really good job.
Because we all, us who kind of were of age to remember that time, we knew how big Michael Jordan was, but we didn't know how big Michael Jordan was until we got older. And then you look at this, you look at the behind the scenes, and you see how they were basically rock stars going on tour. They were the show to watch. They were, kind of like the Warriors the past couple years. They were the show to watch for the NBA. I mean, you still had LeBron. He was going to attract everything. But as far as team wise, in the modern era, would be the Warriors because they were kind of the rock stars right now because all that. But those Bulls teams, they were everywhere you go, it's sold out, fanfare everywhere, and the owner and the GM were trying their hardest just to mess it all up.
Right. Did you feel okay? I also felt like, it gave you a really true perspective of how, because, when you're in your little bubble, and I say, like, we as people, we get in our own bubble. So the way I experience Jordan might not be the way that you experience Jordan in the same, and vice versa, and so on and so on. But you got to see the way that the weight and the magnitude that their presence was in other lives of other people. You saw, I don't know if you remember the little clip of the two kids. When they were like, yeah, our parents asked us, do we want presents under the Christmas tree, or do we want to go see Rodman, Jordan, and Scottie Pippen? And they chose going to see them instead. Yeah. So it was like, y'all not getting any presents, but you get a chance to go see greatness and witness it in person.
Yeah, which was hey, I don't blame the kids. I'd want to go see that too.
Me too.
So it's once in a lifetime, right? Those were some smart kids. But the building of that Bulls team, it was so unique because Michael Jordan, he was so worried about people looking at him at a certain way, saying he's not a nice guy. But to me, leadership, you have to be a jerk sometimes if you're a leader. I mean, we see it all the time in businesses, owners, hedge fund guys, they're jerks. The way they get to the top, they're jerks. And sometimes you got to be a jerk to your teammates, but you just have to know how to, which teammates you could be a jerk to and which you could kind of, you can't be too much of a jerk to them. It's because everybody reacts differently to how you talk to them.
And I think also too, I think he interprets his I guess being a jerk, whatever, as not being nice. But what it really was, I mean, and we have to call it what it is. That's leadership. And that team needed a leadership. They needed a leader because they were used to, having this machine, this really, really well oiled machine. And then once they got in there and didn't have Scottie, and that was like his man 50 grand, he didn't have anybody else to go to. That just totally threw the balance off. Yeah. So the only way for him to be able to kind of make some sense of it was for him to kind of be, not to call it a dictator, but he needed to be that one person to be on him. And it's like, you ever be with, ever work with someone who only wants the best, and then you work with somebody else that doesn't really care. Yeah. And then it's just like, no, for the sake of the team, he's out here to win. And I mean, you cannot do anything but respect that.
Especially if he's one of the older guys on the team. I mean, he's been there since '84.
Yeah, right.
You pretty much has to listen to him because he was so determined with Scottie. He was so dependent on Scottie being kind of more the vocal leader. Jordan wanted to go out there and prove it lead on the court. Some people want to lead on the court and they don't want to be they don't want to be too vocal because they know how they could get when they have to get too vocal. So that was that. And Scottie Pippen saying he didn't want to mess up his summer. That was the funniest thing I took.
I was dying. I was like, did he really say that he didn't want to mess up his summer? I was like, Scottie.
Someone on the folks on Twitter said Scottie got hurt on company time, so he said he's gonna get back healthy on company time. I'm like, you can't blame him, but that kind of showed a little resentment Mike had towards him because he said Mike was whatever situation he had with management, he was still at that point he was still pro team. He was still he was still the company guy, even though he's having differences. And I think he kind of had a point because he did suffer a foot injury.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. He did.
Yeah, that foot injury kind of made him see things differently as far as what the business is because, they had him on the minutes restriction and all that. So I think Scottie definitely should have got the surgery done earlier in the year. Scottie made a couple questionable decisions during his time, especially with that contract. How'd you feel about the contract?
So, we're always on my show. We're always talking about, the athlete business relationships and, the decision making that goes along with it. And that was one example. And I'm really glad that they went into really, really great detail about it because this is something that people need to see behind closed doors that you almost never get a chance to see. Like you hear about it, speculation, the media reports on it, but we don't know, what's been talked about between management, owners, athlete, that relationship there. And this was the first time you really get a chance to see an insight on how that all went down and how big a bad decision like that can just totally throw your entire career off because this guy is a legend. Mm-hmm. Was it second? Well, yeah. second scorer on the team, led the team, well, runner-up team on assists, led the team in assists, like, and sixth player on the team, highest paid. That's ridiculous. That's like, that would be like Kevin Durant making $17 million for 8 years.
Yeah.
That is unfortunate. And it's like, you know, I don't know who was there in the time, and, you know, at the time to manage him and his decision making, but it's like, I understand why he did it, because, you know, coming in as a player, if you're not being coached on, you know, which deals to take and which ones to kind of put to the side, you're never going to really know. And I know he wanted his family to be make sure that he had money. And I'm sure you probably heard thousands of stories about guys, you know, having money and then all of a sudden not having anything and being left broke. But at the same time, I feel like he wasn't coached well enough to know, like, okay, you can make a decision now and sign, but you can re-sign. You know, these are options that are open to you that you just have no idea.
And what made it even more mind-boggling is the owner told him, Scotty, this is a bad deal. I will not sign it. If the owner is telling you that's a bad deal and you shouldn't sign it, then I mean, you should take the guy's advice. But you're right. Exactly. He was probably just thinking, I want to take care of my family. But you just look at the numbers. It's just, we never see NBA players taking 7-year deals.
No.
At any point in the history of the NBA, I've never seen any contracts 7 years. I think most I've seen is 5 years.
5, yeah.
And just doing the math, he's like 7 years, 18 million. Like,
the fact that they allowed him to do that deal, that I was looking at them and I couldn't get past anything else. I had to go back and watch it again, just because I was just so fixated on the fact that I couldn't believe that he signed that deal and they allowed him to do that. And I get it, you know, the owner's out there for the business, this, that, and the third. But at the same time, it's like, if you don't have any integrity and your players can't trust you, you're going to have a problem down the line, which is what happened.
Yeah, definitely. Because why would you bring a deal like that to the table in the first place? Unless,
exactly.
7. And plus, had he taken a shorter deal, it would have came up like a 3-year deal. He would have came up with a new deal. Mike would have came back from retirement, and I think the NBA, the TV money just started kicking in. So there were guys started getting crazy amount. Because I remember in 96, Alonzo Mourning got like 120 million or something like that, and then Shaq got $100 million from the Lakers, I believe. So I mean, if Scotty had taken a shorter deal, he probably would have got that $100 million deal.
He would have.
And even Jordan
he would have been in a way better situation, and then it wouldn't have left such a negative taste in his mouth, you know, because, you know, after you saw the relationship between him and Jerry Krause, like, if you get to a point where you feel brolic enough to disparage your manager in front of all of your coworkers or whatever, like, that's when you know it's time to go. But he can't really be mad at anybody else but himself, you know, because that was just a really, really poor decision. And as an example, and it's like, you know, moving forward, before you take any deal, you have to really weigh it out and know your options.
Yeah, and know your worth too, I think.
Know your worth.
Yeah, and sometimes those decisions could be faulted with being young, but I think he was already a few years in the league. I think he was like in his mid-20s or something when he signed that deal. So it was like he's been in the league for a little while now to have known better. So, I mean, yeah, we could feel bad for him for a little bit, but a lot of it was he did it to himself. So it's like, we kind of feel bad for you, but you put yourself in that situation.
Yeah.
So kind of don't feel bad for you, but, you know, it was – somebody said it. This is what growing up in poverty does to you. That makes you do those type of decisions.
I was going to say that because that was kind of just like being a product of your environment, because $17 million, you hear $17 million and you come from an environment where no one's ever even seen $1 million, you know, that's going to alter your thinking in the way that your decision making. And it's like, I may have made something like that, but I would have asked somebody, like, you know, you would hope that at that point in his career, in his 20s, him being in the league for at least a little bit of time, he should have somebody that he could reach out to and just say, hey, look, I don't ordinarily like to talk about money, but, you know, or having a mentor, somebody like, you know, because you don't really hear, I guess, guys talk about their mentors that they've had while they've been in the leagues.
Yeah.
often, you know, like maybe later on down the line, you know, you start to kind of hear, you've heard of, I guess recently, you know, like Kobe always talked about his relationship with MJ.
Yeah.
But back then you didn't really hear about any of that.
Yeah, because a lot of those guys had to do the growing up themselves.
Yes.
From a young age. So it's kind of like they just learn on the fly, which is kind of, I don't know. But the league has done a better job now with helping new players when they come into the league with programs and all that. What were some of your other takeaways from that documentary? My biggest one was when Dean Smith told Michael Jordan to go pro instead of coming back for his senior year.
Oh, yeah, that was probably the smartest decision that he ever made, though.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, and that was at that point back then. Kind of the college coaches wanted the players to come back because we had a lot of players. 3 years playing 3 years was considered. If you left after your third year, that was considered leaving early.
Yeah.
You know, and nowadays, you know, John Calipari does a good job. He always tells his players, if you want to go. He always encourages their players, but not back then. A lot of college coaches weren't encouraging their players to go. They wanted to keep them in there for a much longer period of time.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I thought that, I was like, wow, I can't believe he told him that. But, you know, he obviously saw something and at least, you know, witnessed his greatness already, and then just knew, I mean, there was only one place for him to go, just up from there, from where he was. I mean, I think I had so many takeaways from this. I mean, but I think one of my biggest ones, and it was about MJ and his home relationship, and something that his father said, and he kind of was talking about how his father, he would always be like, oh, you're never going to amount to anything, and how he would say that to him, and how the relationship between his brother, he and his brother Larry built that competition and that competitive side in him that really fueled him to kind of go really, really far and push them. But also just the fact that he was really looking for that acceptance from his father, because his father did say that. And that really, you know, even though I know that everybody talked about his brother in the competition, I really think this whole thing, you know, the whole grand scheme of MJ was he really wanted to be somebody to prove to his father so that he could get that acceptance, because it seemed like he never really got it. And then, as you know, of course, his father passed away down the line. So I hope that he was able to really come away with that. But I just thought it was amazing how something like that and just having a competition at home with somebody that, you know, you grew up with can really fuel you to become who you are. Because, you know, you look at him and you just became a completely different person.
Yeah, me having 3 brothers, I know when you got siblings, there's a fight's gonna happen no matter what.
Definitely.
Especially when it comes into competition. If you guys are playing something, either be video games, whether it be slaps, I mean any little thing, a fight's gonna happen. And if you're the younger one, you're probably gonna get picked on all the time. If you got a couple more older brothers, you're gonna be the one that's getting picked on by them. So that I know what that feels like. Because
are you the youngest?
At a certain point, I was. But there's one after me. He's the youngest now. But
so you're the middle.
Yeah. So I got 2 older brothers. Then there's me, and then I got a little brother after me.
Got it.
So my little brother, he didn't experience the getting picked on because we had to. My mom was just like, anything happens to him, something's gonna happen to you. So it was one of those things. But yeah, competition is just. I know having a sister. I know you know what it's like too, because it's just. Sibling competition is just big in life. It
is.
I think it shapes.
It's interesting to see how it kind of all comes together once you get older. Because you know me, I'm the oldest, so it's me. Then I have a younger sister, and then I have a youngest sister who you met, and she and I are really, really close, and we don't really. I don't really compete with my sister that I know of, because you know sometimes there's competition whether you know it or not. Mm-hmm. You know, like you think you're not competing, but your sibling is competing with you, but you just don't know it. You know, so I don't know if that it could probably be that, but yeah, I mean, I think especially in terms of playing ball, like you know, that's all he had to do, you know, and I actually resonated too with something that Scottie Pippen was saying, how, you know, with his home life, he just wanted to play ball because it was just something that he could do, that he could play by himself, just so he can kind of get like a little bit of an escape. Mm-hmm. So, and I was like, you know what, I get that. I definitely get that, especially being in a house full of 7 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Woo. Yeah. Yeah. Also, what I want a spinoff is the traveling cocaine circus.
I
I
was
need,
just about to bring that up.
I need, they need to do a 30-30 of the traveling cocaine circus because I'm just imagining a young Michael Jordan, first or second year in the league, and he goes into a hotel room. He opens the door and he just sees a line of coke, weed, and women.
I was just gonna ask you, what did you think about the traveling cocaine circus? That was wild to me, and I wasn't expecting that. I just wasn't expecting it because those types of things happen anyway. But I feel like it was the 80s, it was the 90s, 80s,
80s. It was the
80s. So that was a big thing. But you remember too, there was no social media. So I feel like what people were doing back then, nobody really witnessed it, or if they did, they kind of just kept tight-lipped about it. Yeah. But now you would never be able to get away with that.
No, heavens no. Heavens no.
Right.
Also, at that time, the NBA was still, I think it was David Stern's first or second year in the league, and they were still transitioning because the league, before David Stern got there, the NBA had a bad reputation for a lot of their players being on cocaine. From the 70s and then through like the 80s. And then, so a lot of those players that was playing in the late 70s, they were still there. And they were still in the league at that time. Maybe some were fading out, but some were still there. And, they had the influence. So the cocaine was still relevant in the NBA. I mean, just look at the Celtics, Len Bias. That happened in 86. Yeah, 86.
That's true.
So the NBA always had that problem, that image problem with the cocaine. But I'm just saying, for a young player to come into that's gonna be like, this isn't what I signed up for.
Yeah, and I think he did a really good job of not diming on anybody, but also kind of just putting it out there and letting it be known, and just kind of now you see why he stuck to himself, because he probably didn't want to be, involved in all that. And all it takes is one time for your career to be over.
Yeah,
one bad story.
I just want to go look at that roster from that team. I'm gonna try to pick out who was on.
We need to get somebody who's gonna pull it up for us. Pull up the roster for us.
I think Artist Gil. I think more might have been on that roster. I have a feeling that he was on. He was on that coach at that time.
I don't know, but I definitely think that a 30 for 30 is gonna come out, because I think when I was looking at I was online yesterday on social media, and that I was looking at just like, I wonder what people's reactions are to the Last Dance or whatever, and a lot of people, it was just a lot of memes about the cocaine circus.
Hey, listen,
I was like, okay, so this is what their takeaway is. Okay, all right.
Hey, I wasn't expecting to hear nothing about cocaine at all.
I wasn't either. I wasn't either.
And also, I think Mike was a little drunk at some point. I think Mike got a little tipsy during this whole interview, because he got the yak, the liquor right next to him, so taking slow sips. So I don't know how long they sat down.
I was just gonna say, those interviews are really long.
Yeah, so
he seemed very relaxed, because you see MJ in interviews, he's usually like very all business. He's not usually like really laid back. I was like, he's pretty laid back in this interview. Yeah. He's in his house just straight chilling. He's got a little bit of yak on the side.
That might have been the second or third cup for all we know.
For all we know. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and they did point out there were some great moments in they pointed out the game against the Celtics, the playoff game against the Celtics. Yeah. And that Celtics team was considered one of the greatest teams ever, that 1986 Celtics team that he lost to. And it was basically pass the ball to Will offense. That was basically what we're doing. And for them to just throw all that to young players, most people won't be able to handle it, but he was welcoming it, which, a lot of people criticize LeBron James of that, of not lacking a takeover mentality.
Yeah.
Which I think is ridiculous, because he has it, but we're seeing a lot of comparison with LeBron James and Michael Jordan with this documentary. But going up against that team, I think we saw Jordan do all he can, but when you're going up against a team with 4 Hall of Famers, you just can't do it by yourself.
Absolutely. You know, and I'm really annoyed with people that always make this comment that Jordan took so many shots, so he should, you know, his numbers are this and he should be that, and he was a selfish player and this and that. But it's like, you know, you look at the guys that he played with, and there were instances where he had a great crew around him, but there were a lot of times that he didn't have that. So in order for him to get the team to where they were, you know, and you're starting to kind of see it now, you know, they showed so many moments where he was able to kind of just seize the game and really push them to a win that they would have definitely not had. And in order for him to do that, he had to be the one scoring all the time and consistently scoring. And the fact that they allowed him to do that, like you said, that almost never happens.
Even if you look at his rookie year, there was that one game. He said they were going into the fourth quarter, they were down by like 9 or 10 points, and he said usually a lot of those guys were like, okay, that's it, we'll just get ready for the next game. And then he basically told the coach, the coach was basically give the ball to Jordan since he seems to be the only one not giving up on this game, and then he willed them the victory. So he kind of just had that mentality from his rookie season because, you know, those guys aren't used to winning.
Exactly. And that is why they had to give him the ball, because he had to lead that team and really recondition their minds to win, because it was like, who gives up on a game?
Especially
like, you're making millions of dollars. Maybe that's why. And they're just kind of like, okay, maybe there's another game. But there's something about that winning mentality. And either you have it, and if you haven't had it for a long time, I know, you know, because I'm a Patriots fan since I was 10 years old. I remember, and it was like they kind of had that mentality when they were being coached by Pete Carroll. Not all of them, but it just seemed like it was just okay for them to win and just kind of go to the next one. And so Jordan didn't have that. And the fact that he was his biggest critic, he was not about to let it go down like that. And I took my hat off to him like the entire time. Right, even before this meeting right now with us having this meeting, I was just thinking about it, and I kind of went back and started watching like little parts of it. He was so phenomenal. So he is just anybody that says he wasn't the GOAT is just wrong.
Yeah, you're getting a picture of why he's always the coolest guy in the room.
Yes.
This is showing a glimpse of why people talk about him the way they do. Yeah, he probably was a jerk, but at some point, it don't matter. Yeah, like,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah, he's also getting his privacy invaded. You know, we're not even talking about that part. You know, the fact that he's now, you know, one of the biggest celebrities in the world. You know, the show when he went over to Paris and what it was like, and how people were just like he's having a conversation trying to get suited up, and then, you know, homeboy comes over and he's like, "Can I get your autograph?" And it's just "Can I have like 1 second?"
Yeah. Jordan, well, it's just a good thing that Jordan played in the era he played in, because if he had played in the social media era, I don't know. I don't know how he'd be able to handle it. Maybe he'd handle it probably, but he'd probably just, you know, be over people.
Yeah, I hope he wouldn't be pushed to fight, because, you know, some of nowadays, you see how now these guys have gotten a lot more brolic, and they're a lot younger now too, but you just see like the athletes going into the stands after people who are heckling them and stuff. And I mean, hecklers have always been hecklers, and there's always been somebody that's in the crowd. But it's just getting taken to a new level now.
And at some point, you need to have tough skin, because fans are there to be ridiculous.
Right.
That's what they're there for. I mean, I know the incident with Isaiah Thomas. I thought he was an idiot for doing that, because for going into the stands to talk a guy to tell a guy to, "Why you disrespecting me?" So
it's like, seriously.
Like what are you doing? Okay. What are you doing?
Does that make you feel better now that you said that to him? It honestly, you know, I think there's been instances where people were throwing things on the court, and I think that's a little bit different. I think security's got to get a little bit more strict on that. Not to go off on a tangent, but you know, I was at a Celtics game recently, and I saw that, you know, they removed somebody, came in and got him and kicked him out.
Yeah, I was at the Boston College game, and Grant Williams was there. It was when they played Duke. Grant Williams was there. Mm-hmm. So we're in the press section where I was sitting at. Like, I was sitting behind a bunch of students, and there were some students just heckling Grant Williams for no reason, just heckling him because they wanted an autograph in a picture. And I'm just looking at them like, really?
That's so crazy.
Yeah, so there's a lot of crazy things in the sports world. Also, talk about this. This guy Kyle Larson, is that his name?
Ugh.
The NASCAR
Yeah,
guy.
yeah.
I'm trying to figure out why people are so enamored with trying to mess up their money. People are trying their hardest just to mess up their money, and and, and he knew better, but he said it twice.
This is my thing. There's something going on with esports and athletes playing. Like, I don't know are you a gamer?
Yeah, here and there.
Here and there?
Okay.
Okay.
Not as much as I used to be.
But you have friends who are gamers.
Yeah.
So the competitiveness of being a gamer and also the culture of being in esports is just really different than what people realize, right? Because it's like you got the headset, you're talking to whoever it is you're talking to, you're in the chat. People are saying all sorts of stuff on there. Like, parents, if you're watching and your kids are gaming and you don't know what they're talking about, get into their conversations, because some of the nastiest things I've ever heard have been on chats for, especially the public chats, and I think the competitiveness that gets stirred up in the athletes now that they're doing them, because it's like now there's no game, so everybody's really interested in athletes playing e-games, which is great for esports. But at the same time, the level of emotions that are that they're using, and this is probably how they play all the time, which is why I say about Kyle Larson, this is something that he's probably said 1,000 times.
Every single day, probably. He probably says it every single day.
Probably says it every day. So, the heightened, you're getting so heightened while you're playing these games. I mean, I don't even know if I think it's a good idea. At first, I thought it was a great idea to start having the athletes play, they can't play their real sports. So, they're all gamers. Why don't we have them play sports? But they just seem to just keep getting themselves in trouble.
I just don't get how they can't censor themselves. I was watching the NBA 2K tournament. A lot of those guys censored themselves.
Yeah,
that's
what they should have done.
It's not hard.
Either way, it's like you're still a role model. So you're looked at as a role model. You are a model athlete. So just the fact that it was okay for him, that he thought that it would be okay for him to say that and just rock with it, was just, it was beyond me. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like,
yeah, and there was people trying to blame it on youth or his age, but it's no. At some point, you got to realize you're on a stream. A lot of people watching you.
You don't get a pass.
Nobody's doing anything right now, so everybody's gonna hear and see whatever you do. So why do you think it was appropriate to do that? And somebody in that group chat, nobody in that chat actually warned him or let him know, like, what are you doing?
Where was the agent? Like, where are these people's agents? Because I don't know if you saw. Did you see the Madden tournament that was with NFL players? This was like last month, maybe. I think at the end of last month. And so Tyrann Mathieu, he was playing against Pat Mahomes and like a couple other guys.
Oh, and he quit?
He was losing. Yeah, he was trying to quit because he was so mad he was losing. But it was like, yo, calm down. You're so serious and like so heightened. And it's like, that competitiveness. That's what I'm saying. And so he didn't say anything that bad, but he was, dropping a few things here and there. And it's just like it's like the competitiveness takes over them, that they really can't. It's like they almost can't function properly. I'm like, I don't know what's going on with esports right now.
I can understand with Madden. Madden definitely gets people in that mode. It riles people up, especially when you're getting your behind whooped.
Yes.
Yeah.
and then on top of it, you getting your behind whooped in front of thousands of people who are watching and against your teammates and other players in the NFL. So it was just like, all right, I can understand you getting your feelings, but when you start, throwing out racial slurs and comments about things, like, no, that's inappropriate. He lost a lot of his sponsorships.
Yeah. And
then he got fired, of course.
Hey,
so people were saying that they don't think that he should have been fired, that was a little bit too drastic. And I'm like, well, where's the line of appropriateness? Like, so y'all think that it's okay for him to racially, throw out some type of racial slurs or hurl insults at people, and then still be representative of a brand that's been trying so hard to embrace it because, you know, NASCAR and Formula One racing, they've been trying really, really hard to try to embrace multicultural, you know, viewers now.
And they've been accused of racism for a while. So, hey, at some point you need to make an example out of somebody. So, you know, especially people that should know better, should take ideas from other sports. Because I mean, who was the guy? The baseball guy. I forget his name. I think they found old social media posts of him, you know, using derogatory language. I forget.
Which one?
This was a couple years ago. He was a pitcher for Milwaukee, I believe. I forget his name. But yeah, they found some tweets of him, you know, using the N-word and all that. And
social media gets everybody every single time.
Yeah. So people need to watch them. So also the WNBA draft happened last week. Did you catch it?
I missed it. I'm so mad I missed it.
I fell asleep, but I was looking at the ratings. It was the most viewed WNBA draft in the history. Got a lot of viewership, got a lot of views, and you know Sabrina, the girl from Oregon, she went number one, of course, which wasn't surprising. And there was a girl from Holy Cross. I think she was picked in number 20 or something like that.
That's dope.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Check it out.
Yeah, so I think this is helping. This pandemic kind of helped the WNBA a little bit.
Yeah, and you know they also just passed, so now they up the amount of money that they can get for salary cap now. So it's really good now that they're actually able to. I think they were only like the majority was getting like $100,000 maybe at the most. Yeah. So that's been increased, and they've been able to make more money now, which is good. I wanted to ask you, what did you think about the horse tournament? Did you get a chance to catch that with the NBA players and the WNBA players?
I watched Chauncey Billups and what his name? Guy from Atlanta Hawks, the point guard. What's his name? What the heck's his name? I forgot his name. But I was watching that, and I couldn't deal with it. It was terrible. Just like the camera kept moving, the camera quality wasn't that good. And Trae Young. There you go. And I didn't. I watched like 2 minutes of it and was like, no, I can't do this.
You know, I got really excited about it because I was like, this is going to be something that's interesting. That's something we can kind of, you know, at least some sort of competition that includes women, men, and just like, you know, retired players. It really included everybody. So I was really excited to watch it. And I caught Paul Pierce. I caught just a couple of them. I kept on flipping back and forth as, you know, the pandemic insists that you do. Yeah. And some of them were really good, but like you were saying, like some of it looked really kind of ghetto because I was like, what they should have did is they should have set everybody up with the same setup for their house. You know what I mean? Like camera, or just like at least had some sort of like guidelines or something. Because it looked just like, I mean, what's the name? One of the women from the WNBA, she had like her daughter was filming with her camera phone. So you really couldn't get a lot of the angles. And then I was just like, man, I just can't wait for sports to be back.
I think the only thing the most entertaining thing during this pandemic has been the Instagram battles between musicians. Those ones have been pretty good. I mean, the Teddy Riley and Babyface, I think, cracked like something like 500,000 views last night.
I tried to get in. I couldn't get out. I couldn't get in. It was frozen the whole night.
Yeah, so a lot of people were saying that. I think you can't have old people do internet stuff.
That's so ageist.
I mean, we saw it Saturday. We see it Saturday. Teddy Riley wanted to have a whole concert, and the whole thing was a hot
What was
mess.
going on with him?
I don't know. Babyface was ready. He had his laptop. He had everything ready, and this guy just came and wanted to do the most. And I'm just like, ooh. And it caused up a lot of things on Twitter too, because one of my friends from CNN, he wrote an article about it. Basically, the headline was it was a fail. The battle was a fail, and then in the article he talked about how many views they got. Then he added some of the content that some other people were doing in response to what happened. And Black Twitter just, oh my goodness, Black Twitter jumped on him. They were harassing. Him. It was like a stampede that came at him, but it made quite the entertainment for Twitter. I'll say that.
So that was like the whole thing was like, okay, he went on there. The audio was horrible. Couldn't hear any. You could hear like every other word. It was like seconds late, or there was on a delay. And then they said that they were going to redo it yesterday, right?
Yeah, they did it yesterday.
So then supposedly they did do it. Some people saw it and some people didn't see it.
Yeah, I know some people. The people that I know that saw it, they said it was really good. They had all the hits, but yeah, some people were left on frozen.
Yeah, I was left out frozen, and I kept seeing the number getting larger and larger. So it was at one point it was like 482,000, and then I saw, like you were saying, it was like 500,000 on there. I'm like, how are all these people getting in and I can't even get on there? So I don't know, but from what people that were saying that I know that watched said that Babyface won. Some people were also talking about the history of the beef that they have, the low-key beef that, right now, they're being cordial to each other, but there is an actual small beef that they've had over the years, and they kind of just like let it go, and they, now they're cordial to each other, but there's like beef.
I can't picture Babyface having beef with anybody. He seems too nice of a gentleman.
I think Babyface is petty. You could kind of see he was throwing shots at him in the first one. And then even his post that he posted about it with the audio was kind of shady. I was like,
he's one of those like sophisticated petty people.
Yes. And so I think basically they started having beef, not to go off on a off-sports tangent, but they had beef going off they both do you remember when the Bobby Brown movie happened?
Yeah.
They both produced tracks off for Bobby Brown. And so remember, Face and Jimmy Jam, they produced a lot of Bobby's music. But then I think it was for Don't Be Cruel, or My Prerogative, Teddy Riley produced that. So remember, he left them and went to Teddy because Teddy was like more lenient and wasn't as strict. And he was like in there smoking and all this or whatever. And was able to just he was just like a little bit cooler, and the vibe was like, and it was just a little bit different. And he wanted like that New Jack sound.
Yeah.
So he went there. So it kind of stemmed from that, because then he really didn't want to work with Babyface apparently and whatever. So then it kind of started there, but then I guess, it kind of grew over time, because then I think Riley and Babyface also produced for Michael Jackson on the Dangerous album. And so I guess it was like some words apparently on there. So.
Well, there's nothing wrong with a little.
Yeah.
There's nothing
R&B beef.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all. Also, did you happen to check out the Patriots' new uniforms?
I did. I'm still not sure how I feel about it. I think they clean. They look clean. I don't know. I mean, I'm a creature of, change sometimes is hard for me when it comes to sports, but. Yeah. Then I don't totally hate them. Totally hate them. I'm sure it'll grow on me.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, I like the other ones better. But speaking of the Patriots, what are we doing? What are they going to be doing now? They need a quarterback.
They need a quarterback really bad.
I had an argument with my cousin a couple of weeks ago. He's telling me he thinks that this guy Stidham is going to be the guy to replace Brady, because my cousin in time has turned into a big time Brady hater. And I'm just telling him, Stidham is not that guy. I saw him in college. He's not that guy. He got pulled. He got pulled from a preseason game. He's just not that guy.
That's terrible.
Yeah, my cousin has all this belief in Bill Belichick and all that, which is cool. But I'm just like, you still need a quarterback.
Well, if he has all this beef, this belief in Bill Belichick, I mean, and what I would say is Belichick knows what he's doing. I think the organization has pre-planned this. And I think a lot of people don't understand this transaction with Brady leaving. it really has to do with something that they had already been planning. Much like, you know, if you to take it back to The Last Dance, when they were talking about, they knew it was time for them to rebuild. Instead of trying to go for a 6th ring, they knew they needed to start kind of rebuilding because there was a chance that they may not have Jordan in the future. And it's the same idea with Tom Brady. And it was like, you know, the longevity, and the reality is he's older. We don't know how long he's going to be playing for. He could play 1 year or these years in Tampa and then be done. They don't know. And because of that, the organization has to rebuild. I think that this is going to be a rebuilding season, and next season is going to be a rebuilding season. But trust and believe, Bill Belichick knows exactly what he's doing. He knew what he was doing when he was getting Brady. He never does anything that is not premeditated. He's already got a plan, I'm sure, in existence. And we probably just don't know what it is. And there may even be people in the organization that don't know what it is yet. But when it is revealed, I'm telling you right now, like, I have a lot of faith in him, and I've seen the way that he's worked. And he doesn't think like an average person. So
yeah, because all in all, this is a young man. Sports is a young man's game. So
it is.
It's just having a quarterback that's about to be 43. I mean, it's one hit and he might be done. So
yeah,
I understand the move. Brady, that was a good decision to go in Tampa. Nice weather. They got weapons. They have.
I think his family's down there too.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, Tampa Bay's defense is not that bad. They kind of had a problem. Mm-hmm. They kind of had issues because their quarterback had threw 30 interceptions. So there's expectations there. I just don't know how good Brady's gonna be, or how much he has left in the tank. Because watching that AFC Championship game, that whole team. Not the AFC Championship game, the AFC first round, the wild card round, it just looked like a team that ran out of gas after being in the Super Bowl the past 3 years.
Yeah, I think, because I mean, if you think about it, they've been to playoffs contention every single year for like the past 10 years. That's got to be tiring. Yep. You've got to they haven't had any real time to rest except for off season, and then even during off season, you're still seeing Brady. And a lot of those guys are in training. They train throughout the season. They never stop, really, and they take minor breaks here and there. That's not enough to be able to lead your life, really. And, like you said, he's getting older, and quarterbacks are not – the quarterback game is not even the same anymore. So, they need somebody that's going to be able to adapt to that. And I really think that the Patriot organization really is looking to make that move into a more active quarterback. Yeah. Instead of just a passing game, because they've done it for so long. Everybody already knows that's how I'll say we, because I'm Patriot Nation. But everybody knows that's how we play. I mean, I could put my niece and my nephew out there on the field and they already know what's going to happen. So,
yeah. Yeah, my biggest issue is just like Cody Kessler, Brian Hoyer, and Jared Stidham. That's you look at those three quarterbacks and you're just like, yeah, we're not going to do anything. And then they're definitely not going to get Cam Newton, because if the Patriots get Cam Newton, Boston Talk Radio will try to run him out of town 2 days into him being here. So I know they won't get there.
I don't think the Patriots are even interested in Cam Newton, because I think, not only do you have to be great at what you do at quarterback, but you have to be a certain type of personality to fit into the grand scheme of things. And you got to have the willingness to adhere to the strict guidelines of Patriot organization. And I don't think they're going to take anybody that is not going to do that. I mean, they've given guys a chance, and you see, we've had Ocho Cinco here. We've had Hainsworth here. We've had tons of guys that were here, and they tried it out, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
I think Cam Newton is. I have a lot of thoughts on Cam Newton. He's not the guy. He's not.
That's my guy. I got all the respect for Cam Newton. I like him. I just think that the Panthers did him the dirtiest. The way they treated him, and the way they played him, and how he put his body on the line for that organization, and the way they treated him afterward. It was just ridiculous. That whole organization was ridiculous. Only got couple more minutes left. The Celtics, are you disappointed as I am that they didn't have a chance to go at it for the title? Because I thought they had a really good chance this year of making it to the finals. Because
such a great squad.
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde from last season's team. This team was just focused. They were together. They didn't have to deal with all the personality issues and ego issues.
They were really gelling.
Yeah. And even the bench guys were coming together. It was, Jason Tatum, he was coming on as the guy for them. That guy to take over games, and Kemba Walker. Gordon Hayward was playing some great basketball this season.
Yes, he was.
And he gets a lot of criticism, which is ridiculous, but he was playing a lot of great basketball. He found his role. They found a role for him. He was able to accept it, and he actually excelled at it because there were some games where he'd be the leading scorer or he'd be the leading assist man. He was just out there making plays, and Jaylen Brown could have been most improved player of the year this season. This team, I'm just so disappointed that we didn't get to see them go into postseason because I think, everyone had Milwaukee going to the finals, but I think this Celtics team could have gave them a run for their money.
I agree with you. I want to say quick, Gordon Hayward is a G. I mean, anybody that had the type of injury that he had and was able to come back from it. I mean, and he is highly criticized, and I think it's not warranted because I don't think people understand how difficult it is to come back from an injury like what he endured. Mm-hmm. And he's been really trying. You can see it every single season. He comes back and he's better. Then he goes. Then it's like a step back. Then it's a step forward. Then it's a step back. But this was the best that he's looked in the last 3 seasons. Since he's had that injury, and I was really rooting for him too. And I think just that team as a whole, like you said, they just seem to adopt that mentality of Ubuntu. Yeah. Always laughing with the guys about that. But I was hoping to see that. But I will say, just on a positive note, if they were able to do that and accomplish that, even though they didn't get a chance to really, really duke it out, that mentality and that chemistry is still there. Mm-hmm. So hopefully next season, whenever we get back to being able to play, those guys was still talking about practicing even when they were under quarantine. Yeah. Marcus Smart, even still, those guys were just out there balling, and I was really, really looking forward to seeing them take it as far as they could. Yeah. Next season.
Same. Guess we're gonna get. Oh yeah, and another thing with the Last Dance, with that on the Last Dance, had they not broken it up, do you think the Bulls would have went 4 in a row? Because I absolutely think they would have won 4 in a row because that following season was a lockout season, so they would only play 50 games. Yeah, they'd be well rested, and I honestly think they would have been able to win 4 in a row.
I think they could have gone as far as they possibly could have gone. Because I'll tell you right now, they wanted it. It really always seems to come down to how hungry you are. If you're really hungry and you really want to go after it, and you got somebody behind you that's, leading you and is pushing you, because you're not only just getting pushed by your coach, you're also getting pushed by your teammates. That's a very different thing. Yeah. I think that, and as long as they could have all stayed healthy, they could have definitely taken another year.
Yeah, definitely. But the owner and the GM, they will just wanted to mess that whole thing up.
Yo, proud.
They need to get it together.
He got my L for the week.
Yo, major.
Got the L for the week. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, there's so many things. We could have went on about that Last Dance for another couple of hours, but
I know
time is up. Shanda, if they want to find you, plug your social media, tell them about the 617 pod.
Yes, we so you can catch my show, That 617 Life, on NBC Sports Boston. It's a podcast. It comes out every single Monday. You can find us anywhere that podcasts are: Spotify, Google Google Podcasts, iTunes,
Google Play.
Google Play. You can find me playing esports. No. And then you can follow me on Twitter. My handle is Shanda Sounds Off, all one word, and the same for me on IG.
All right. I want to thank Shanda Foster for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have her back again sometime, talk about more fun stuff. You guys been watching Athletes Corner. We are out of here. Have a great. I said Athlete Corner. +1 interview. We are out of here. Have a great one.